Good morning and welcome to another GM Tips. GM Rick here, or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you're at in your time zone. For me, it's a morning. Got little Munchkie here again because we're still getting through being ill, but much better, much happier, not throwing up. Good things. So today I'm going to go into two different GM tips. The first one's going to be on complex plots or complex plotting in a campaign. And again, this is out of the Kobold Guides to Plots and Campaigns. I love that guide. Munchkie's happy. She got a tooth fairy, lost a tooth, and got Mal, Maleficent's daughter, out of um, Rotten to the Core. It's the new Descendants stuff. But that said, we're going to go into complex plots. Now, what is that? Well, say your campaign is expanding beyond the first few adventures you've set up for your players or first few story settings for them. So your first scenes, your first unfolding in their hometown, wherever you have them going. And you want to expand further. They're becoming heroes, they're becoming well known, they're getting a little prestige in the world. They are maybe expanding out in the universe if it's a star campaign, or they're expanding out on where they were known at a space station, maybe to a different station. Maybe they're going to a new smuggling point. Maybe as heroes, they're going to a new city as a heroic group of superheroes. In Shadowrun, maybe they're going out to a new part of the world to do their apply their trades and the different things that they can do as a cyberpunk type of character. Or maybe you're doing something in the Deadlands where they're going to some new place in the Weird West. Or heck, Open Legend, they're going to somewhere other than on the world of Amaria's Dawn. Or they're going somewhere different as a whole. You can watch one more, Munchkie. Uh, so they're going somewhere different. Or in Pathfinder or D&D, they're expanding out. Maybe they're leaving Sword Coast if you're on Faerun. Or on Greyhawk, they're leaving one of the world's parts of the free city of Greyhawk and going somewhere different. Or they're leaving Sand Point if you're playing Pathfinder and you're playing on the world of Golarion. Or maybe it's your own home world that you've got them running on. And they're expanding out, and you want to meet that challenge. How do you as a GM keep all that straight? Because, see, it's easier when you've got them in one location and you're running them to keep all the plot lines and everything going with them and all their prestige and how well they're known in the world really well aligned with what you're trying to do. But they don't want to stay there. They want to go somewhere different. They want to explore your world or your universe. How do you handle that? Well, realize that every action that the players do in the game affects the world or the universe as a whole. Whether it's a small ripple or a large one, remember, it's like throwing a rock into a pond and watching the ripples go out. And Kevin Culp writes on this section, and he talks about that. And he goes, remember to account for player actions is the best thing you can do for a long-term campaign, whether it runs 5 months or 15 years. Some people have had that. Wolfgang Bauer, who wrote the Kobold Press things, and Midgard, his campaign was a long, ongoing campaign that they did that they could turn into a world and a printable product. And his players' actions defined the world. In fact, they became iconic parts of the legend of that world. Make sure you're doing that. I mean, like for instance, my last campaign in Pathfinder that I ran, they were in Carrying Crown, which is in Ustalav. They've had long-term effects on the world. Ustalav is no longer as dark as it used to be because Virhold and Vorlich are now back to themselves, where it was Virlich originally. And it was a nasty place where they had imprisoned a lich of epic power. Well, they accidentally released him. They changed the world back. They killed off most of his undead minions, but boy, he went off to another world. And now it's affected things. And it still affects their new characters to this day. Beerholt and Zorlich are neat places to go visit now. And they've got some weird legends. He's gotten rid of all the evil that was there and the undead machine of the goddess Urgathoa of the undeath. But now her prize minion is loose, the one that was imprisoned by Erodin, the dead god. So now we're going to have some fun, and it does affect the world. How do your players affect your universe? Do you write it in? I think most GMs do, especially experienced ones, but sometimes I think we forget to write it into the history so that they hear the names of their characters brought up again. Even if it's in passing, they are known in that world. I love this. This is a perfect one. He says, the ripples, see, we think alike. The ripples change the world for better or worse, and the heroes are the ones who cause the change. Remember, like I said, you toss the rock in and you see the ripples go out. Kevin, you and I are on the same wavelength on these things. It's amazing how, as GMs, we get onto the same wavelength after a while. We begin to think similar as GMs. Not totally, but similar. And that just shows that we learn from great sources. But you do. It affects the world, good or bad or indifferent. It affects the NPCs. As the ripples go into motions, write it down. So often we do not write down the history, and that's something I'm going to do after this campaign that I didn't do with the last one as much. I'm going to write down into the history how these players are going to change the world of Golarion, the Erisian part of the world, the different places they visited, because they visited 2 or 3 places on Golarion. They visited another world, and they visited another world altogether in Earth. They affected each of these. And for good or for bad, they've irreparably worked on these. So it's going to change the history of things. The best method of post-game summary emailed out to all the players for the next game. So, I love this. Organized GMs can toss everything into an online wiki and reward the player in and out of game rewards for handling each week. That's kind of cool idea too. I think rewarding your players for writing the story is key. And I reward my players for great role play. They'll tell you, I give them experience, whether it's 25, 50, 75, 175. It's not a lot, but it says, I recognize you did something. And sometimes it's not even about going up a next level, and sometimes it does. Sometimes they're 200 experience away from another level, and that 175 or 200, I edge them over to the next level. So keep in mind, you can do a lot to impact your players by doing that. I love this because this goes back to the branch theory. Seed your game with endless plot hooks. I agree with that. Have plot hooks everywhere that if the players latch onto them, they can deal with different plot lines and things that allow them some freedom. It doesn't totally make it sandbox, but it gives it enough that it's not a web either. Remember in the last video, and you want to watch the last video where I talk about the web, where everything goes back to a single focal point. All the actions in that web lead one place. The branching one leads out different courses. And when you seed your thing with endless plot hooks, you begin to give that branching theory where everything can branch out and each action causes another branch to occur. And that's the cool part. And that's life. Think about it. Our lives are that way. Yes, there's a beginning and an end. There's birth and death. And those are the only 2 points that are fixed. Everything in between, you go any direction you want to go. And that's pretty cool. And each action leads you, and it may narrow choices down that you would have. Maybe choices go away that you would have had you took a different branch or a different path. The same is true in gaming. So you want multiple plot lines, but you don't want to overwhelm your players. Go brainstorm 5 mysteries or an adventure ideas that sound fun. I like that. Brainstorming different places they could go, and I did that in this campaign. They went off to a old bridge in the country they were in, and it had a lot of undead. They got some items they would have never gotten otherwise in treasure. So, it's the great part about this. And I love this. Drop the hooks for the adventure seeds, but let them either bite or not bite. You are not controlling which hook they're going to get. Let them have those different hooks. You can even go to 7 or 8 if you want. I wouldn't go beyond that just because it gets really complicated after that to try to keep track. Um, so, as they were talking about the characters that were in Green Glass, he talked about. Here's some other storylines. Bolera's death causes political entanglements, good or bad. New priest seeks change. Another town asks heroes to kill their hated inquisitor too. Bolera's legal will leaves a haunted and cursed item for a person who slew her. You find green glass to the person. You find green glass kind of boring without Bolera. So an army of troglodytes are slowly undermining it from below. So there's a lot of different hooks you can do. I like this next one. Never do more work than you have to. As GMs, we task ourselves sometimes too hard. Yes, there's a lot of prep. There's a lot of work that goes into DMing and GMing. There always is, and there always will be if you want to make a great campaign. However, don't task yourself so much that you feel overwhelmed. If you're starting to feel that feeling, take a breath. Stop what you're doing. Go get a cup of coffee. Go get a cup of tea. Go get a hot cocoa. Sit down and just let your mind clear. Breathe. Quit thinking on what you have to do. Let it all flush out. Then 10 minutes later, go back and look at it with new eyes. Ask yourself, am I doing too much? Is this too much that I'm writing in? Yes, is a lot of times the answer. Because we want to be so prepared. You can't be. Just jot some ideas, jot some thoughts. Don't have to fully flesh it out right then and there because the characters, even if you fully flesh it out, the characters are going to take it some other direction, I promise you. Something you didn't think of. They're going to go someplace that you're going to go, son of a gun, what are they doing? Let them. Let them write it. You just have to then take some ideas. Have a book of NPCs. Always get yourself a book of NPCs. If you don't have them, go online and see if you can find them. Get books like Remarkable Inns and other type of things for your gaming systems. Get all those little side plots. Even Numenera has a lot of that kind of stuff. Kobold Press has that kind of stuff. Frog God Games has that kind of stuff. Paizo has that kind of stuff. And so on and so on and so on. I could give you every gaming group under the sun. Have sources, have resources. So that way you're not constantly doing everything. Dwarf in a trench coat has some great ideas for plot hooks and different things. Go on to their little store. It's on Drive Through RPG. Look up Dwarf in a Trench Coat and get those ideas. And I'm going to tell you, you won't be unhappy. Simon Munoz has great ideas for Pathfinder and D&D. He puts a lot of them out there. Um, Alex Agunas has great ideas with a lot of his side material that he writes and different things that he's writing with his company. You've got to see there are people out there that do this as well. Don't put it all on your shoulders. So never do that. And I love what he says. If you're gradually seeding your game with 4 to 15 plot hooks at any time, you can't possibly develop all those to account for the player choice. Don't even try. You'll burn out quickly and reduce to playing Monopoly, um, which you finally remembers in the good old days. Instead, have a general idea of the progression of the plot threads at any given time. They don't remain static. Advance the plot as well. They're dynamic. Plots change. They dynamically change at all times, especially as the heroes change. Slowly ramp up the connections. I love this because you don't want to race in. The heroes might decide to find out why the Trogs are angry, or they might wonder why that new keep of theirs has cursed them. Add new plot hooks organically and let them spin off from there. You just do it a little bit. The campaign, I love this. Your campaign becomes like a musical. Jazz hands. I know you're never going to see me do that again. Okay, jazz hands. I do it twice. Each song is different, but common themes wend their way through every one of them. There's a commonality that leads to a coherent finish. That's what you keep in mind. Keep a common thread. They can go off whatever direction, but that common thread is what's key. Use villainous organizations. Oh, God, I love those. I do. I'm going to say right now, Paizo team. I love the Aspis Consortium. I do. And I love the Whispering Way. Two of my favorite groups. My third favorite is the Red Mantis Assassins. Then the fourth one would be the Free Captains of the Shackle Isles. My four favorite organizations. Then you got the Hell Knights, which I like after that. And then you got various other groups. Have lots of villainous organizations, even in your world. Come up with 5 to 7 of them. There are so many. Faerun has the Fire Knives and the Shadow Thieves of Am. Greyhawk. Oh my gosh, there's so many. There's the Crimson. I think the Crimson Captains, which are the pirate group that's out of there. Don't quote me, but I believe that's the one that's there. And there's other organizations on Greyhawk that just pervade it. The Zentalar and the Zentarim of the Zents. I love the Zents out of Faerun. Great organization, fun to play with. The Cyric worshippers, God, they're a mess in their own right. There are just so many groups. If you get into a system that you know and love, Gamma World has thousands of them. I love Gamma World because of all the organizations. Keep that in mind. It says, never fall in love with your bad guy. I agree. Your bad guy may be there today, gone tomorrow. I do too, but they're only going to get smacked around by your heroes. Your bad guy is never going to win. So that's why organizations are fun, because one gets knocked down, another one appears. And it says, to avoid a single point of failure in their nefarious plans, the best bad guys belong to organizations that share their long-term goal. They have mentors, sidekicks, lovers, and others that get really hacked off when the players kill them. See? Ideas. You gotta love ideas. Bend expectations. Oh, that's a fun one. I I love when these authors do these things because it's really true. Keep your players interested in a long-term game. Consider a plot line. Think about what your players will expect. Then defy their expectations by doing the complete opposite. I love that. It just drives them nuttier than a fruitcake when I throw in a wrench and they go, "What?" They lost Greta Wolfstrider. Greta's coming back. They just don't know yet. And oh, Greta is going to be a daemon of power reckoning they haven't even went up against. This is going to be epic. It'll be their next mythic they got to go against. Greta ain't easy. Greta's got a keen axe, and with her feats, she is death on rolls. And they know my rolls with her. So this is going to be a nightmare for them in epic proportions. But as they say, here's some defying things that he throws in there. The undead Lich Lord falls in love with the PC's bardic music and does everything he can not to kill the heroes, but to keep them safe so he can listen to the music forever. So just when you think that Lich is going to wipe you out, nope, he wants to keep you as his play toy. The eccentric hat and staff vendor the heroes have run into a dozen times as comic relief is actually a transmuter who gets paid to permanently polymorph abusive spouses and their bullies into leather hats, which he then sells in the town market up and down the coast. Ah, there's a big plot they didn't expect. Oh, this one's good. The sacrificial victim of a demon princess is actually the demon princess herself, imprisoned by the Church of Light thousands of years ago, and the wards have finally crumbled enough that she can be freed by a gullible group of do-gooders. They think they're freeing the victim, they're freeing her to do her will. Got to love those things. Or perhaps the sacrificial victim is an angel with her wings sawed off, and the heroes need to race against time to stop the demon princess from being summoned directly into the angel's body. Now that. You remember that? What was that? It was the movie with Keanu Reeves. Oh my gosh, you know this. It's a famous one-worded one where he kills off the demons. Oh my gosh, you guys are screaming it right now and I'm blanking on it. But you know who I'm talking about. And remember, they were bringing back his son through the body of the woman he was trying to save. Interesting. Bring back old friends. Hey, it never hurts to bring back an NPC friend that they've lost. And then pull it all together. A great campaign can last for a long time, especially if you have rules set. If you have a rule set you love in a stable group of players. So keep pulling it back together. And that's what makes it really interesting. I love this. And I got to say, if you guys haven't gotten Kobold's Guide to Plots and Campaigns, spend the frickin' money. Kevin Culp, great job on this. I love the complex plotting. Some of it I already know. Some of it I just like to hear again because it's freaking cool. And so, guys, keep in mind, you got to have some good resources that you go to that really make it for you. And they give you ideas because at the end of the day, that's what you need. So, all right, thanks for this GM tips on complex plotting.